here we have a bicycle, a new bicycle at Max's destroyed jump track that the city destroyed. You might be asking why I keep getting new bicycles, and I'm not gonna answer that. Maybe I will a little bit, like it's not a big deal. Basically, my new bike is a little too capable and it doesn't really fit my riding style nor my local trails, which is kind of a big thing. So instead of constantly driving out and seeking harder, more dangerous terrain to try to ride and then hurt myself on, why don't I just enjoy some of the simpler trails on a simpler bike? And secondly, I wanted to see if other people should buy this bike, so it's kind of a test review type thing, since I help people online and sometimes I recommend this bike, but it's hard to recommend because of, you know, the build spec. So, I mean, given the price that it was, why don't I just try it? So we're just gonna go over a couple normal things, such as like how the bike arrives to you, you know, how it's delivered, I'm not gonna do a build thing because I already built it. I took a couple photos, but whatever. Part of the reason I didn't do the build video is because of something I'll touch on in a bit. And I'm also gonna go over the idea of like upgrades, what to upgrade, when to upgrade, what to do with it in the future. But I don't think there's gonna be any riding in this video necessarily. So if you just wanna see it written, that's next video. Skip. So firstly, like how it's delivered to you. I will say if you are in California, which we are, you can drive there and pick it up, and they offer a build service. And to a certain extent, especially if you're not mechanically inclined, I highly recommend it. And there's a reason I highly recommend it, and that's because they deliver the bike to you a little bit different from other brands you may have experienced in the past. It's not too bad. The drivetrain seemed pretty indexed. Everything seemed pretty fine and easy to put together. You know, putting the headset down, that's easy. Most people could do that. The tricky bit is the derailleur thing. And I really wish they could not do that. But it's pretty clear that it's an issue because on their website, they have a video dedicated first thing on their installation page on how to fix that issue. So they don't have the derailleur mounted. The rear wheel isn't mounted, the derailleur isn't mounted, and they just kind of ship it to you in a heap of chain, and you have to kind of unravel it and figure it out. Now you could tell this is going to be an issue for a lot of people, and it was even an issue for me, which it probably shouldn't have been, because I kind of unraveled it correctly, but I did one thing wrong that made it really weird for me and kept making the chain harder. I'm going to link this installation video and show you the key thing that I messed up that you need to get right to do it right. When you look at this video, I need you to look at the cable routing and copy the cable routing exactly. Now, that shouldn't be a big deal. Why did I get that wrong? Well, there's more C-clips and routing on the frame, so I, like an idiot, used all the routing, used all the C-clips. So I routed the cable real tight all the way to the end, and you probably shouldn't do it that way. It's not the way other people are doing it, and it makes it way harder. So make sure you don't use the last C-clip, leave that slack, let the cable go up, and it'll be easier for you to find the chain line and make sure that your derailleur is correct, because that's the thing. I think my derailleur was correct and on the right side, but my cable routing was messed up. And because the cable routing was messed up, I thought the derailleur was on the wrong side, and the curse words, time wasted. I fixed it, eventually got it. But I got it by looking at his cable routing. That's what solved everything. And again, otherwise the bike was fine. The only kind of weird things is the spoke tension is kind of loose. That's whatever, all bikes will eventually get loose, so you do need to retighten all spokes from new. And one of the interesting things I'm noticing, and I'm not sure if I'm right or wrong here, but it's kind of how it feels. So this bike has the weird brakes that are mechanically pulled with a cable, but the actual caliper, the pistons, are actuated with a little hydraulic system. It's okay, I guess. The brakes aren't great. The weird thing is, I think the caliper and pistons are suffering from a bit of sticky piston where they don't like to pull back apart, so you're constantly getting a pad spreader and doing that. And the minute you pull it once, they go right back to rubbing on your rotors. So I kind of feel like you have the crappy cable pull feel of mechanical brakes, and then the maintenance issues of hydraulic brakes, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it wasn't the right choice. I guess if you go in the maintenance and fix it, it's fine, and if you just replace it all, it's fine. I mean, that's the true narrative of this bike. Sure, for the actual beginner, this is a great value in so many ways, and these issues that I'm mentioning probably aren't the biggest issues. And then for everybody else who's basically buying it as a frame, which you can do, by the way, and I recommend if you obviously have parts and whatnot, it seems very clear that those brakes are a takeoff and the fork is a takeoff and most things are kind of a takeoff. And that's kind of how I'm going to approach it, because for my level of riding, eventually I'll have to get there. And that brings me nicely into what I plan to do it. I will note, in terms of the delivery thing, I guess I should mention, to be honest, that we ordered it to be picked up. Not built by them, but to pick it up from the factory, just because I wanted to see that. And as we were waiting for the confirmation for it to be ready for us to pick up, it arrived on our doorstep, I guess, which was weird. They just like shipped it to the billing address, and we contacted them like, I think that was a mistake, and they're like, it is a happy mistake, because now you don't have to drive here, and it's free anyways. So I guess that's cool. If I want to drive there just to see it, I guess I could do that, whatever. So the upgrades I'm gonna do, and in what order maybe, I already changed the grips and pedals. The grips and pedals that came on it, totally fine for beginners. I assume most people are gonna change it. The saddle is interesting, because I touched the saddle and I think to myself, that's the worst saddle I've ever sat on. And then I ride it and it's not bad. I don't know what to make of that. So I'm actually gonna leave it on for a bit to see if it's even remotely suitable for a butt, because it doesn't feel like it is, but it's actually doing okay. So we're gonna leave that there for now. The one annoying thing that I really hate is, obviously this comes spec'd with no dropper, rigid seat post to save money, which is totally fine. Definitely fine for me, because I'm a BMXer, but why not do the quick release clamp thing? Just the clamp, the quick release. I guess if you really want it, you can buy one and put one on there. But, and I do like Allen clamps if I have a dropper. If it's rigid, I love a quick release clamp, and I don't have to take like a multi-tool or Allen or whatever on the ride. And then last but not least, contact points. The tires are tires to save money. They're not tires for real riding. They're cool for like gravel and stuff. I wouldn't expect much in the way of like traction and braking and all that on these Kendas. That's fine. The big thing is, I believe, I haven't checked yet, so maybe I should check, but I believe the rims are not just tubeless ready, but actually taped and everything. So buy everything, the tires, the valves, the sealant, and you're good to go. The brakes we kind of touched on. They're not great, but like a lot of the parts, they're okay for a beginner. It is what it is. The people who want to swap it and do like a frame build are going to swap it, and the people who are just starting on a budget probably think they're okay, so whatever. Again, just mentioning that like sticky piston issue. The levers are obviously hard to pull with a cable, and then they feel kind of like far out, and I'm like 6-foot guy with big hands, and they feel kind of like that. I'm not sure how it would feel for a smaller person or a kiddo if it's the same spec. I doubt the levers change in size, so that's weird. Bars and stem are a bar and stem. I might replace them, I might not, I don't know. They're fine. So that kind of brings me to the things that I didn't want to replace if possible, because this was my idea for a build. Since I didn't want to do a frame up build necessarily, I was really hoping, naturally, that the wheels and drivetrain would be fine. And so far, from what I can tell, the wheels seem good, and the hub actually seems quite nice. Like, good engagement, good feel. Like, they could have gone cheaper, I think, if they wanted to, but they didn't. And the drivetrain that I've always been wanting to try, the Advent X, is really good. I'm still breaking it in, and it's still just kind of choking going up it, but it feels really great going down it. I'll eventually get that dialed out, and I'm sure it's going to be great. And the shifter is quite good, kind of SRAM-like, but with even more tactile feel. I'm used to the Dior back and forth thing. I love that, and I miss it, but it doesn't matter. In terms of the fork, I obviously want to replace that eventually, but it's not even like that high on my list, because if I replace it, it's just going to be a 120 or 130 air fork and whatever. So any other things about the bike? Not really. I will say the geometry is quite cool, and it doesn't feel too different from any of my bikes. Like, it's really cool to just jump on it, and even though it's very different in a lot of ways, kind of just jump on it and go, and it feels great. The reach feels longer than I thought on paper, and the head tube almost seemed a little bit slacker than I would have thought it felt, but it's not a big deal. It just gets in my head to that thing of like, could I have gotten the medium? But I don't want to dive into that whole idea of like getting a hardtail that feels like a dirt jumper as opposed to a bike that's pleasant to climb all day and pedal and whatever fitting. And of course, as a hardtail, that 65 degree head tube, you know, it gets steeper as it goes through the travel, so maybe you don't want it steeper. Could have been cool as like 66 or whatever. You know, there are some other bikes that are 66, like the Giant Fathom 2, which I highly recommend. And I did see one used for the same price as this new, but it was kind of like beat up, and then you don't have a warranty, you know, it's kind of iffy on, and the geometry is a little bit different. I like this one. It's definitely Spindat's BMX hardtail vision, and that's the same vision I want. So again, we're not going to be doing too much riding. I haven't been home a lot or riding a lot necessarily, but we're going to get there eventually. And my plan is, of course, to do some riding on it stock and slowly change it over time, maybe as other people would. I'm just not sure what to change quite yet. You know, part of me wants to test the tires and tubes and see like when they fail me, but you know, that's kind of a weird thing to test. I might just put real tires on it from Versus or Specialized and do tubeless. Don't know which dropper to put on it yet, or if I'll even do it at all. Might just do a quick release clamp and try that, because that sounds cool. Saddle, I'm either going to keep that one or do fabric scoop like I do with all my bikes. Fork, again, would love a Z2 Bomber or something, I don't know, but given how 27.5 forks are, I'll just get whatever I can find, which currently is like almost nothing. Brakes, once I swap those out, which I definitely feel like I need to do being over 200 pounds, just going to get the Shimano MT520s, which is like the 420 caliper with the upgraded lever, because that's the best value in the industry. Bar stem, I'm not sure yet. I always mess with my bar stem, and it is what it is. I might get a little bit shorter stem and a little bit higher rise bar, just to really BMX it out. Oh, and then the last thing that people seem to be doing that I might do is change out that square taper bottom bracket, just because it's like, I don't know how unreliable they are, but it just looks like everything gets in there and then ruins everything. Could be wrong, but yeah, would like that sort of Shimano BB that kind of seals it up better. Otherwise, the drivetrain and cranks look fine. Getting shorter cranks would be cool, but other than that, it's fine. So yeah, Poseidon Norton, hardtail. This is probably the bike I'll be riding for all of next year. And